Welcome to episode 3 of my podcast. I'm Manjit Kaur and I'm a narcissistic abuse recovery therapist. This is a story about a woman who contacted me to share her story. Her name has been changed to protect her identity and whoever else I may mention. I'm going to call her Kiran and her partner Cam. So let's get started with this story. The year is 2006 and Kiran has just returned from a trip to India to visit her family. 2 months before this, she had a relationship breakdown. She felt the trip away and spending time with family helped to take her mind off the relationship breakdown. She felt she was over it and was ready to date again and meet someone new. She felt immense pressure by her family to get married. Kiran registered on a dating website. This is before the invention of dating apps. She matched with a few people and started some conversations, but nothing transpired from them. That is until she connected with Cam. She felt comfortable talking to him straight away, and after her recent breakup, the attention felt good. She told Cam she had just come back from India, and he wrote back and said he was glad she hadn't got married in India as he wanted to marry her. She couldn't stop smiling. No one had said this to her before. He was good looking and she could see potential. Cam suggested they exchange phone numbers within a couple of days of talking. Back then there were no smartphones, so you had to use a computer to check emails. Doesn't that sound crazy now that we have everything on our phones? Kiran quickly agreed and didn't even give it a second thought. One evening he said he would ring Kiran, and this brought a smile to her face. She felt nervous, just in case he didn't like the sound of her voice. Cam phoned as agreed, and Kiran quickly answered. She loved the sound of his voice and he had a strong northern accent. He made her feel at ease and she felt she could talk to him about anything. She couldn't wait to meet him. Over the next few weeks they continued to text each other. They spoke very little over the phone, which was fine as Kiran was not much of a phone talker and preferred messaging. They finally agreed on a date to meet. Kiran was excited, but so nervous. She wanted him to like her because she already felt like she was falling for him. They agreed to meet halfway. Kiran waited for Cam in the shopping centre anxiously. She could see him in the distance coming towards her. He gave her a hug, locked his hands in Kiran's as they walked to a restaurant. Kiran could feel a connection and a spark already. He had a lovely smile and a spark in his eyes. He didn't make much effort in his outfit, but Kiran wasn't that bothered as he seemed nice and they got along really well in person, just as much as they did over the phone. In conversation, Cam mentioned to Kiran that he is looking for someone to get married to and that he doesn't want to be messed around as he had already been through a lot. He talked about his last relationship a year ago and how his ex-girlfriend had broken up with him after a couple of years of dating because she was cheating on him. She was quickly taken by his honesty. Kiran said she wanted the same and that they can see how things progress. Cam was quite honest and told Kiran that his family wasn't perfect and that his brother had a non-traditional way of living from their Indian culture. His brother had had children out of wedlock and she was of a different culture. His family didn't agree with his ways, but they had come to accept his life. Kiran appreciated him being so honest and opening up about his family. This was Cam's way of building the trust. This made Kiran comfortable enough to open up and let her guard down quickly as she talked about her relationship breakdown. She showed her vulnerability. Kiran and Cam eventually got round to ordering food, but when it came to paying, Cam said he had forgotten his wallet at home as he had been in a rush to get out of the house in the morning to see her. Kiran didn't think anything of it and quickly took her card out and paid. Anyone could easily forget their wallet. Kiran and Cam spent hours together walking around the shopping centre and then stopping for a coffee. It was finally time to say goodbye. They had a lovely day together. Kiran and Cam wanted to meet again. Things started to move really quickly after the first date. They messaged constantly, but spoke little over the phone. Kieran was becoming attached as he made her feel so good and wanted. She was becoming bothered as they didn't speak much over the phone. At first, Kieran was okay with this, but things had changed for her. She wanted to speak more on the phone and to hear his voice. They needed to build a stronger connection. He visited Kieran in her hometown a couple of weeks after their first date. She booked a nice hotel for him to stay, and they spent the whole day, and she spent the night with him. Yes, she had paid, and Cam didn't offer to contribute at all. She didn't think anything of it, but deep down found it a bit strange. He had not paid at the restaurant, and neither had he offered to pay for the hotel. They didn't do a lot, and Cam didn't suggest they go out either. They spoke continuously, and that was enough. He said all the right things to Kieran to make her feel wanted. He disappeared for a short while and said he was going to the hotel lobby. Kieran waited for him, and he didn't come back for some time. When he returned, he said he had gone for something to eat. Kieran was also hungry, and there was nothing for her to eat. She found that strange, but again overlooked this red flag. She went to bed hungry, and Cam didn't ask her if she wanted anything. In the middle of the night, there was a loud bang, and it appeared that someone had been arguing in the next room. Cam went out to investigate, and he didn't return for about an hour or so. Kieran asked him where he was, and he smelled of smoke. He said he had been helping to resolve a dispute between a couple. The lady who he helped lived in his hometown, so he said he would be giving her a lift back home in the morning. Kieran thought nothing of it and felt that it was a nice thing for him to do. To this day, she is unsure of what really happened. They departed first thing in the morning, and he said he will see her soon. Cam started to push the boundaries early on in the relationship to see how far Kieran would go for him. Within a few weeks of them meeting, Cam asked Kieran for some money. He said he was a little short. He said he needed it for the house that they would be living in when they get married. Kieran thought that it was a one-off, and she transferred the money to him. Back then you had to go in the bank as there was no online banking. He thanked her and said he was so grateful for the help. Kieran found that she was helping Cam out a lot financially. After the first time of loaning him some money, this became a regular occurrence. He always had an excuse. He said he needed the help or his house would be repossessed, or some excuse or another. He always promised to pay her back. Kieran was becoming concerned, but yet couldn't break free. He said all the loving right things to her and said he was serious and wanted to get married. Cam and Kieran continued to meet every few weeks, and sometimes a couple of months would pass by until they met. But then things began to change. He began to phone her less and less. He would send the odd text message, but it was not like before. He was becoming inconsistent. Kieran tried to call him many times, but he would not answer his phone. He made an excuse that he was at work or busy with family, but before, he always found the time to call her. He sometimes called Kieran when he was out, which was strange, and he always seemed in a rush. He never rang her from home. She had the feeling that he was lying, but he also seemed genuine at the same time. Often he would cancel their dates and say that his car tyres had been slashed, or there had been a break-in at his neighbour's home, or his neighbour's tyres had been slashed because of intruders in the area. Other times he would say that a member of his family has passed away, or he had a family emergency to deal with, so he had to cancel. The excuses kept on piling up, and meeting him often turned into hardly seeing him. But when they would meet, he was as charming as ever, and like they had only met yesterday. Kieran would often purchase an expensive train ticket in advance But with him cancelling, she would often lose the money. He would always suggest meeting on a weekday, which meant Kieran had to take time off work. Him cancelling meant she had lost a holiday. Kieran found she was losing herself in this relationship. The regular meetings were becoming less and less frequent, and the financial abuse and manipulation continued. Kieran continued the relationship, and seeing him a little meant something to her, and seeing him was always good. Kieran had thoughts in her head that he could be cheating. This was completely out of character for Kieran, but she went on to create a fake Facebook profile. She selected an attractive lady from Google and sent Cam a friend request. Days later, he accepted. Kieran plucked up the courage to send him a message. Kieran made something up, that she worked as a pole dancer. To this day, she does not know what made her say that and what possessed her. Over the next few days, Cam engaged with this fake profile and said he is keen to meet her and that he finds her attractive. Kieran read the message and it shocked her and her heart sank. She had lost so much money helping him financially and had put up with his inconsistency. And all along he was flirting with other women. She cried. She did not know what to do. She left it for a few days and did not confront Cam about this. She was afraid of losing him. She carried on talking to him through the fake profile to see what he comes back with. But every time she responded, her heart was breaking. Then several days after Cam had connected with the fake profile, he suggested to Kieran he would like to meet with Kieran's parents to make things official. She was so excited and she thought finally the relationship was moving to the next level. She decided to put the fake profile to the back of her mind for now. 2 days later, he asked Kieran for a large sum of money, to which she was shocked with. He wanted £5,000. She told him she needs to think about this for a few days as it was so much money. In that time, he love-bombed her with continuous attention, messaging, calling and talking about their future together. She told him days later she would loan him the money. She went to the bank and made the transfer. He thanked her once again. And then several weeks later, he asked Kieran to take out a £12,000 loan from the bank. He tried to convince her, but she set a boundary this time and said no. Despite him trying to convince her, she said she would not. She decided she would not say anything to Cam just yet about his flirtatious messages on the fake online profile. She went along with Cam's suggestion of meeting her parents. They agreed on a date and he agreed to meet in Kieran's home city. He said he would be coming by himself and not with his parents. Kieran and her parents waited for Cam outside a shopping centre complex. Kieran thought that he would cancel and not show up. But in the distance, she could see his car and she smiled. As they watched him in the distance, his car hit another car and there was an accident. It was like a bad omen. He exchanged insurance information with the other driver and that was that. They went for a coffee and Cam offered to pay to Kieran's surprise. He had not spent a single penny on her in the time they had dated. Kieran's mum and dad asked Cam lots of questions as parents do. He even told the same story about his brother to build her parents' trust. He rushed off after 2 hours and said he has to go to work. Kieran asked to have a quiet word with Cam to ask about the other woman on Facebook. Obviously, Kieran had to be tactful to not appear she is a psycho and that it was her messaging him. She asked Cam if he was talking to someone else, to which he replied no. His eyes seemed to change and they looked like they were lying, and she could tell from his body language that something was not right. Kieran made something up and said that her friend's friend had had a series of messages from him that were flirtatious. He told Kieran his brother cheats and that he has logged into his Facebook account and was flirting with other women. He said he would have a word with him and get his password changed. Kieran believed him. Cam gave Kieran hope that he would be arranging for Kieran to meet his family, for which she was excited. She let the other woman go and put it to the back of her mind. Afterwards, Kieran's parents said they did not like Cam and there was something strange about him. She did not listen, but deep down she knew they were right. Cam strung Kieran along about meeting his family for the next few months. He would arrange a date and then cancel and said his parents had to go to India for an emergency and there was a close death. For the next few months he continued to make false promises for Kieran to meet his family, but the day never came. He always came up with an excuse. He would change his story from one to another and would say his mum and dad are busy. Then his story changed to his family have no desire to meet her. Then he said his family will disown him if he chooses to be with her. Kieran was sympathetic for a while and then could feel herself becoming frustrated. On top of that, Kieran's parents kept on asking her what was happening with Cam, but she would try and avoid the question. She didn't know what was happening herself. The communication between them continued to become less and less, and his level of inconsistency continued to grow. He spoke to Kieran more on his terms, and when he wanted something from her, when she asked him about the future of the relationship, he either avoided things or made things up. Weeks later, Kieran was at a wedding and she bumped into a friend she hadn't seen for many years. Her friend was now married and she was settled down and said she was living in the same small town as Cam. After catching up with her friend, Kieran asked her friend if she knew Cam and that she had been dating him for some time. Her friend had not been married for long, so she said she will ask her husband and get back to her. A few days later, Kieran's friend contacted her and told her that she has some very bad news and that Cam is already married. Kieran froze and questioned if she was telling the truth. Why would she lie? She told her that her husband knows him and he had only seen him a few days ago with his wife. Her friend told her they had been married for about 8 years and that he was not of great character and that he had been into all sorts of trouble with the police. All she could do was say sorry. Kieran thanked her friend for finding this out, and she's still truly grateful to this day. It was like some fate that she had seen her friend after so long at the wedding. Kieran burst into tears when she hung up the phone to her friend and did not know what to do. She was confused, angry, and heartbroken. She questions, could this be true? But then why would her friend lie to her? Kieran felt her mind was exploding, and she did not know who or what to believe. In anger, she phoned Cam, and as usual, he didn't pick up the phone, which set her into more of a rage. She sent him a harsh message to call her right now. He rang her minutes later and appeared to be concerned. She blurted out and asked if he is married. He was silent for a long while, which felt like an eternity. Then he finally admitted it and quietly said, yes, he is married, but is separated and going through a divorce. This time she demanded to see him urgently, to which he agreed surprisingly. She needed to confront him face to face. Kieran once again travelled to see him a week later. Yes, he kept her waiting for a whole week. When they met, he was quiet and reserved. He couldn't even look Kieran in the eyes. She asked him in person if he is married. She wanted to see his reaction in real life. Cam reassured Kieran he is going through a divorce and that he is separated. He told Kieran he has been married for 8 years, but that his wife is controlling, manipulative, a cheat, and they do not get along. He said they are going through a divorce. Kieran said to Cam that someone who knows him had seen him with his wife a week ago. Cam looked shocked and bowed his head down, and tears started to run down his cheeks. He said that it can't have been his wife. It must have been his sister. He reassured Kieran that he is not lying and is getting divorced. He promised Kieran he is still committed to her and still sees a future together with her. Kieran felt sick to her stomach that he had been dishonest with her. He couldn't even deny it. Kieran asked if he was only using her for the money. Cam looked her straight in the eyes and said no. Kieran asked him when she would get her money back, and he reassured her he will pay her back very soon. He reassured Kieran the divorce would be in another few months, and then they can finally get married. Kieran believed him and gave him another chance. Kieran and Cam continued to speak, and he constantly reassured her they will be together. One day, Kieran had an urge to ring a detective and to have some real concrete proof of whether his wife still lives with him or not, or whether he is going through a divorce. She searched for a private detective in his hometown, as it would be cheaper. She explained her story, and the private investigator sympathized with her story. She felt comfortable with him, and he was affordable. Kieran gave the private eye Cam's address, car details, and what specific information he needed. The call came from the detective the next day, and he told Kieran Cam had been seen leaving his house at 8:30 a.m. with a young woman, and that he dropped her off to work. Cam had been seen giving her a peck on the cheek, and the detective had then lost him. Kieran felt relieved, sad, broken and angry. She had lost around 10k now with all the travelling, loaning of money and spending on him. She needed to break it off and cut her loss and move on. Kieran felt stupid for being with a lying con man. In hindsight, all the red flags were there. He had said his divorce would come through in 2 months, and it had now been 6 months. He never had any money. He told her his parents know about her, but they didn't. He made excuse after excuse, and even said his dad is an obstacle as to why he cannot get a divorce. He once told Kieran that his dad had said that if he marries Kieran, he will kill himself. Kieran met with Cam one last time and told him she is ending things. She confessed to hiring a detective and that she has solid proof that he is still married. This caught him by surprise, as he didn't think Kieran would go to such lengths. Kieran asked for her money back, to which he agreed, but she knew she would never see that ever again. He only paid her £500 back, but that was it. Kieran heard from him a few times after that, but then she began to ignore the calls and texts until they eventually stopped. She even stopped asking for her money back. The last she heard about Cam was that he is still married and that he was never going through a divorce. She also heard from a friend that his dad passed away, which is very sad. Looking back, Kieran knows there were so many discrepancies in his poor communication and lack of contact. He had love-bombed her future fate and built trust by playing on her kindness and vulnerabilities. He pushed the boundaries early on to see how far she would go for him. He latched onto her in a vulnerable state, as she had just gone through a breakup. Kieran was the perfect target for him. Kieran realised she needed to do a lot of work on herself and to work on developing strong boundaries. Kieran has put this experience behind her and learned a great deal about herself and the red flags to look out for. I wish her well and thank her for sharing her story. Please like and share. If you have a story to tell, email me via my website. Thank you for tuning in to this episode.